That's great.
I know, guys, the
Give me a
fucking thing
second.
takes like 10 minutes to load up, so forget it.
Your mood one? Jesus. Does it have a floppy disco?
No, check this out. I turned it on.
Yeah.
It's still not yet. Still running.
It's still turning on.
Because it calibrates each of the oscillators and each of the, so it's like 48 oscillators.
Oh.
You know, whatever filter.
Oh, fuck, man! I just got a error message here. Oh, that's great.
What?
I'm using the key and the thing that it gave me, but OBS. I'm gonna start OBS again.
Oh, dude, we're live already on Facebook. Let's say hi to people watching. Hello, everyone.
Hey.
Just wait a little bit until we get everything going, and some more people are in the room.
Ah, man, this is crazy. Why?
Meanwhile, we're gonna dance a bit for you guys.
Absolutely.
I just can't get enough. I just can't get enough. I just can't get enough.
Alex, what's going on with YouTube?
It was perfect. I mean, I haven't really actually even changed anything on my computer from the time we tested before, and it was working. And basically now it says that it could not connect to the server on YouTube for some reason. It's literally the same server, everything like before. For some reason, it doesn't want to connect.
Maybe take that scheduling thing out and just start the stream from zero, no?
Maybe. Let me try.
I just can't get enough. I just can't get
From the
enough.
time we tested before.
I just can't get
Give me 2 minutes. Now it says that it cannot connect.
Who has the audio there? Somebody has an audio there.
Audio? Ah, sorry.
Wasn't me.
Wasn't me.
Okay, I opened a new window.
And that's a good one for the next episode. Shaggy.
So, hello everyone.
Hello everyone.
Hello everyone.
Guten Tag.
How are you guys doing?
While we wait for some more people to join in, we already have 160 people live on Facebook.
Oh, that's nice.
We're just trying to get YouTube going, and then yes, you can already start dropping some questions if you guys want, stuff you want to hear from us, from our special, very special guest, Thomas Schumacher.
Yes.
And we'll try to start replying the questions. Meanwhile, what is the status there?
I'm gonna do a new one. I'm just starting a new from scratch, just because that's basically the only other option I have. It's crazy. We're kind of, you know, guys, everything works when we're testing. It's always like that. When we're testing, everything is amazing. Everything is flawless. It's insane how well it works. And then once we have to actually go live, yeah.
Murphy's Law.
Yeah, why though? I don't know. But let's see.
I have horrific memories of touring live with Caitlin as a singer, and we would sound check forever to get everything like right, especially the volume of the microphone.
Yes.
Feedback. And I swear to God, every time we go on stage and the guy behind the mixer like opens the mic channel, and what do you hear? Feedback. It's just like so. So you just start to, you know, you lean into this pain and into this feeling of, okay, let's figure it out, you know.
How was it actually touring with Caitlin? When you guys were touring together.
And I swear to God, every time we go on stage.
Oh, someone has their sound on.
Yeah.
Sorry, it was me. Sorry. Disculpa.
What's going on? I think it was it was a huge learning curve for both of us, because what we tried to do at that time, what we did was we brought kind of a setup that you would see in venues, in concert venues, into a club. you know, with like it just if you have one microphone with one singer in a techno club, you know the kind of problems you're running into because the way clubs are set up, they don't have a stage.
I think we're good, guys.
So
Sorry to interrupt you, Thomas. I was
all right.
just saying that I think we're live on our channel. Let me check. Sorry, everyone who's watching. Swear to God, we tested this a few times today, and it was all good. So just trying to figure out what is going on now.
Yeah, we're live.
Yeah, on YouTube as well. A few times today, and it was
Somebody has the thing on.
trying to figure out what is going on now. It's not
Somebody
me.
has the audio.
Is it you, Thomas?
Nope.
Oh, that's crazy. Can you guys check if we're live on YouTube on our channel?
I'm trying, but it doesn't show up for me.
Oh, that's crazy. It says here.
We're not live in our channel, Alex.
I can still
Wait,
hear
wait,
Schumacher
wait.
playing somewhere.
I think we're gonna go now. Yeah, should be now.
You returning.
7 seconds. Ah, this is taking forever. Sorry, Thomas as
Be
well.
patient.
Yeah,
Yeah,
we are. We're all learning here. This is all new to us as well. Well, it says live, but
Yeah, we're live. We're live. It's
thank
happening.
God.
Yay.
So for everyone who has been waiting, thank you. First of all, hello. We are very happy to have Thomas as our very special first guest here today. This is all new. And yeah, so we're a few minutes in. Sorry for everyone who's been waiting, and very happy that
I'm gonna remove the background music.
Yes,
Yeah.
please do.
We're live. We're live. It's happening.
Okay.
Somebody has the audio again.
Crazy. I don't know. No one. I'm not even watching any of the videos, but it's feedbacking somehow. It's kind of
Okay.
funny.
Could be worse. Anyways, let's move on. So welcome, guys. Welcome, Thomas.
Hey guys, thanks for having me. Thanks for the invitation.
It's a pleasure. It's a pleasure.
Absolute pleasure.
So how are you doing?
Is that directed at me, the question?
Yes, of
Yes.
course.
Yes, sir.
Yes. Well, how am I doing? You know what? I just read again in a book that this is one of the questions that we all ask each other, and we always expect the other one to not tell the truth in a way to say, hey, I'm great, you know, life's good. And so, no, screw that. It's a roller coaster, to be honest, right now. You know, it's and it's not even from day to day. It's within one day I experience lots of ups and downs, and I'm just trying to stay with that, you know, and not to suppress it, and obviously focus on things that make me feel good, but also allow it in, you know, because as we all know, this is just something that we couldn't foresee, completely throws us off course. So I want to use this to grow, you know, and that only works if you let it in, and if you go through these moments of despair, you know, pain, you know, whatever comes up, let it come up.
I guess as well. Uncertainty is one of the big ones right now, right? We don't really know anything. How long it's gonna take? That's a bummer. Huge one.
Being on this limbo that we don't know when we're gonna be able to work again, at least with our profession, which is DJing.
Yeah.
And, this actually, I think, is the part that really sucks the most, is not knowing. But I think a good thing to do is just surrender.
Yeah, to surrender, to not know, right?
Right.
But easier said than done.
Oh, totally. But I think to open yourself to the possibility of, you know what, I don't know, and I won't know for quite some time, and you just understand things different. And I think this huge chance of this time is to let go of the everyday fears that we allow to just fester us all the time. You know, even when things went really well, we all know it. We constantly worry about stuff. Well, look at this situation right now. And if we learn to just surrender to it, as you said, Victor, and to understand that we're all being held by the universe and we're taken care of, whatever comes afterwards will feel like a blessing, you know, and I really feel that. And I've read it a lot, and probably you guys too. I don't want to go back to the way it was before. I don't want to go back to the normal. we come from a system that is broke, essentially.
Impossible. It's
You know,
impossible.
Yes.
and I would like to see us really, I mean, the fact that this might overshadow climate change, you know, is like, we know we have to bring this all together now, understand it's all connected, you know, and I'd love
doing everything right now. It's everything everybody thinks about and talks about is basically ruling everybody's lives right now.
yeah.
Yeah.
It's strange. Just we need you know, to get perspective, we need distance. You know, like that's the only way to get a different view of things. So we're gonna still have to write it out for a bit, I guess, until we can get some perspective and understand and, you know, deal with it later.
Yeah,
But,
oh, sorry. I think that the main thing here is that it kind of forced everyone to take a step back.
Yeah.
In a way, you know, and kind of reevaluate everything and priorities in general, and just kind of that crazy lifestyle, chasing, hustling, which, I mean, it's not a problem. I kind of live by that as well. I love to get up in the morning and chase your thing. But it kind of, you get into this robot almost-ish mode, and, you know, the days go by, and I think, I mean, if there's anything to take from it, that for me at least would be the thing. But yeah, glad to know you're doing okay and coping.
Yeah.
Well, I actually have a question for you guys, because I just talked to Monica Kruse,
Oh,
and she said to say hello and to you, and she said that she finds it very difficult to be creative right now, and I was wondering how it is for you under these circumstances.
well, if I may start, we've been talking, me, Victor, and Weber, we've been talking about this over the last few weeks.
Yeah.
I've
I
been,
think the last episode, right?
the last episode we talked about it. I mean, since the lockdown started, I told you this, Thomas, as well. I think last week. I've personally been having a bit of a hard time making music. The month just before was really productive. I worked a lot, did a lot of new music, and as soon as it started, I just finished my first track in the last 4 weeks. You know, and it's just, I don't know, it's kind of so weird not being able to travel and play it out, and see the reaction. And you, to a certain point, I know this may even sound weird, but you almost feel kind of you kind of, for me, I kind of lost at some point I was like, why am I even doing this? Of course it's because I love music, but I don't have any way to showcase it. You know, I can't play it. It's kind of, it's such a weird feeling, such a weird time for me at least. So I've been having a bit of a hard time, to be honest. What about you guys, Victor and Weber?
I think it's the same as you, Alex, because I think when this thing started, I think in a month I did maybe 4 tracks or something like that, and then, which was quite nice. But then I was like, okay, I'm on a roll, so I can keep doing this. Like, and then nada, stop. Yeah, exactly. And then, I mean, this week I did an edit and I'm finishing another one. So, because I just love to do those things, you guys know that. And I'm just putting this thing out so I can just at least, okay, now I at least I did something. I have the sense of accomplishment. So then now I can move forward and maybe create something new or not. Doesn't matter. Wait, well.
I didn't go yet. Yeah, it's been really hard, like, for everybody, I guess. And I've been doing a lot of ambient stuff. It's helping me to try to get my creativity to flow again. And it's a different thing that I've been wanting to do for a long time, to just focus on ambient work, and it's been good for that. And it's something that it's completely unattached, so I can just basically work on that. And it is also very useful because I can just listen to that when I'm, you know, like upstairs in my terrace, like taking some sun in, trying to be a little healthy, you know. And yeah, this kind of stuff. Well, you know, taking it day by day.
That is true. That's true. So we should start. I think Alex, he did a little research on you, Thomas.
Did I?
And he has a few questions for you.
Shoot, Alex.
About your career and about your life.
Well,
Don't forget we're neighbors, right?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, but I mean,
Goes around, comes around.
yeah. No, absolutely. I mean, I'll try to be as gentle as possible. No, I'm just kidding. First of all, actually, just on a more recent note, I wanted to know how, I mean, you just had most of your fans know this, but for those who don't, Thomas just had the big EP on Drum Code coming out in January. I think it was late January. And huge one. I told you this myself. I loved it, and I just wanted to see how you feel about the response you had from fans and DJs and producers in general about that last release, coming from a year where you had a lot of big releases on your own label, the House of House remix last year as well, and so on.
I think it was an interesting experience again, because I think the build-up was, as so for many like artists who are new to drum code, that you start with the track on the A-Sides compilation, which I did, and then like I have my own label, Electric Ballroom, where I released the stuff that Caitlin and I produced together, and then well, Adam got in touch and said, what about, should we talk about an EP? And I was like, yeah, why not, and I don't know, I just took my time and just didn't push myself. I knew I wanted to just also not cater to like, what I perceive as drum code sound or whatever, just do my own thing.
Yeah.
So it was an organic process that took a couple of months actually, till the tracks were in the bag. And then it was supposed to be released by the end of 2019.
Okay.
But as it happens with big labels, things had to be moved around. So it was the first week of January that it came out. And yeah, and you know that feeling. By that time, I had played some of the tracks for months already.
Yeah.
And I saw Victor and you guys. Yeah. And so it's always this weird feeling. It's finally out, but for you, it's also kind of old already, but then you're excited to finally get the kind of like, Beatport, Spotify, stuff like that. But altogether, it was a very rewarding experience, I must say. What personally makes me happy is, for example, it was 3 tracks on the EP, and they all went Beatport top 10, and not necessarily the top 10 factor, but what it meant is that people recognized the quality, that they were all, like potential A-sides in that sense.
Yeah, no fillers, right?
No fillers in there.
Exactly,
I also appreciate, for example, if you go experimental, but I think unfortunately way too often you hear lots of filler tracks, which I don't want to do. So that was a good feeling. And so yeah, so and then you're kind of part of the drum code family with an EP, I think, which is also an interesting thing.
Yeah.
Obviously I know some of the artists already anyway, but it's different because then you start getting booked to drum code events, which has picked up, and it's a cool thing. It's a cool experience.
That's cool. On a note from something you said, I think this is a valid question for all of us, and this is something that might interest a lot of producers out there. What you guys think is, how important is it to release just bombs and not fillers? Not really, that even your B-sides are almost A-sides, you know what I mean? I know there's a few producers out there who are very strict about it and don't release anything they're not 100% behind, or that they know it's an absolute bomb. What's your opinion? What is everyone's opinion about that? Is it okay? Is it not okay? Should you focus on making more stuff and just releasing the better part of it? Or anyway, what is your guys' take?
All killers, no fillers.
Drop the mic and just get up and leave, dude. Just yeah.
Suck it up, bro. No, but
yeah, but it's kind of true though. I mean, obviously it's very hard to judge when like all of the tracks on a EP are killers, and when sometimes some of them are fillers. But with time and experience, it gets easier. And also, if you really try to train yourself to do that and focus on and understand yourself a lot, your own output a lot, you can understand what really works and what is more like, yeah, okay, it's a good track, when they reply like this, like it's good, but and then you start to avoid these traps, and you start to really be able to pick them out and know which ones are really good and should be out there. sometimes you make a mistake. Everybody does, you know, it's normal.
Completely.
But it's just part of the process. It's part of the beauty too, you know.
But in hindsight, now that I think about it, what I enjoyed was actually the A&Ring process with Adam,
Yeah.
the communication, because you could see that he has a pretty clear vision of drum code, but then he also obviously respects, and that's why he's talking to you what you're doing. And I had never the feeling he wanted me to change what I'm doing, but he maybe saw things in me that I wasn't paying attention to too much, and was an interesting back and forth. There was this one track, Anchor, this acid track on it.
Yeah.
It has this break in the middle where it slows down. I just saw a video.
My favorite.
Yeah, it's also, yeah, I've played it numerous times.
Yeah.
Music.
And interestingly, that was a track where Adam, I think his initial response was, "That's a bomb," but then he was a bit concerned about like acid becoming too like whatever, you know, too much. But when he then got more tracks of me and saw the variety, then all of a sudden he said, "This makes sense. If I pair this with these two tracks, then
that's okay.
it gives people a good idea of what Thomas Schumacher can do and is all about." And I love that approach.
So was Anchor the first one you signed? Anchor was the first one.
I'm just thinking back about it.
I mean, for the EP, of course, because before was the Unseen, which
yeah,
is my favorite track of yours.
no, I think Anchor was the second one.
Maybe it was Crimson, no?
Crimson was the one that he immediately said, "Okay, we're off to a flying
That
start."
track was
Yeah,
mind-blowing.
thank you. Talk about Crimson, because I don't know how it is for you, but for me, that was, for example, one of these tracks that I really nailed so quickly because I came in with a concrete idea. Because I was missing in my sets a track, like thinking of festivals, you take over from the DJ before you have a great slot, and so the energy before you was already really high. So you need a track that brings it down, but then immediately sets the tone for like what's to come. And I never found these tracks, so I built this, like I worked with acapellas, all the things you do, but I always felt like it was like a crutch. So I wanted to have this track, and I was like, well, then why don't you produce it yourself? So that's how Crimson came to life. And again, in the studio together with Caitlin, we just like, it was like we both understood how we wanted it to sound like, and then you just lay it down, you know.
I might say that Crimson saved my ass a couple times. Especially at Drum Code Festival was the track that I opened, and I was like, and everybody was asking me, what track is that? What track is that you open? Oh my God. It's like, oh, well.
Yeah, that's a very good one. That's actually cool that you said that, Thomas, because that was one of the things I wanted to ask you as well. How usually your production process starts. I mean, in that case, as you said, you kind of had a vision and a goal exactly of what you needed and what was missing in your sets. How does that work usually in a day? I mean, in your usual production schedule, so to say. Do you kind of have eureka moments, or does creativity strike when you're sitting down in the studio already?
Well, first off, I think it's, and I mentioned Caitlin twice now because we're a production team in the studio.
Yeah.
You know, and it's been like that for a long time.
And how does it work, the process with her?
So I think, I mean, it's always different in many ways, but I think there are a couple of essential criterias. And you and I, Victor, we just did this thing for the Brazilian website where we talked about, like, you know, tips for people. And when it comes to recording music or creating, I want to always make sure that I come in with the right energy.
Mm-hmm.
And for me, that means, for example, also to, like, meditation is part of that, you know, to make sure I eat properly. And most importantly, though, is there's got to be some kind of spark in me already. I'm not the type of producer that just sits down and goes through sounds or samples and then goes, oh yeah, I can do this and that. Doesn't work for me. I'd like, I always much more like, for example, go for a feeling. What's my feeling today? What do I want to express with this track, you know? And the moment I lock onto something like that, and I think for Caitlin, I can say it's the same, then it really starts to flow. And then, you know, it's like you're going through the jungle and you're going from one, you know, tree to the next one. And so basically, I also, what I do a lot is just either write down or record little ideas while I'm on tour, on trains. You know, just opening an arrangement, have this little idea, lay it down, and save it, and then go back to that.
It's really nice.
But
Yeah, I've did that a lot as well, recording
Yeah.
on my iPhone, just like crazy.
Yeah.
If you listen to it, I just sound stupid. Beep, 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 beep. But you know, you're just somewhere at the airport, and you gotta just, I have to write this down because this
Yeah.
might be good. Yeah, that's
No,
a
but
funny thing.
But I think like starting with like a blank piece of paper in front of me, that's just not an approach that works for me. The other thing I wanted to say, and like about the process of creation and workflow, is also to, and I must say, Victor, I have to pay tribute to you here because you're a master at that, is to really, when you're in the zone, you go for it and you lay it down. You know, I'm someone who can easily start arranging, but then come minute 2.5, I do a mini break, and before I know it, it's like 3 hours later. Where, yeah, you know that feeling where I could have literally done a rough arrangement of the whole track in that time. And so workflow is so important, and just think about the big structure, and then do details later. And for example, with Victor, I love it when we work together, because then later when you go back, you often notice you don't need all these little, automation.
Yeah.
Here's a little something, there's a micro sound, there's a reverb, because the main things is already there, and
Thank you, by the way, but
man,
I think I just get I don't know. It's like I'm just
Flow.
hypnotized, I'm just
Yeah,
like
you're in the state of flow, I think.
actually in the zone. Yeah, exactly. So I forget about everything. I forget about going to the toilet, about eating, about drinking, anything. I forget about everything, and you all know me. So I just
Yeah.
I
and
just
I don't
thought
even
about that
speak.
episode where
I don't
where-
even speak. I just mumble. Just like
yeah.
I just thought about the episode where Cartman is in his basement and then he has to call his mom to go to the bathroom. Have you guys watched that? I'm sorry to plug that in here because he's playing World of Warcraft. Mom! And then she comes with something. Just sorry, I'm very imaginative.
No freaking idea what you're talking about.
I'll send you the link. You can thank me later. You're gonna laugh your ass off.
But here's another one for you guys. Do you also have this phenomenon? For example, you're in the studio and you're onto something. For example, you can start arranging. You've got this down, but then you kind of artificially delay it.
Oh yeah.
I'm starting
I'm literally doing that. I was doing that last night because I started this loop and I was like, okay, this is really good. And then like, okay, I have everything I need. And then I went to get something to eat and I procrastinated for an hour and then I came back and I was like, oh yeah, this is pretty cool. And it's 8:30. I don't know, I have to turn the music down and I literally did not do anything. I procrastinated yesterday.
Why do we do that? What do you think? Why do we procrastinate?
That's the word. That's procrastination. Like
it is. I mean,
that's
for
what
me,
it is.
for me, it was procrastination because like I said, the whole idea is there. It's just I was too lazy to start building because I had to build everything and find a kick and blah blah. And I was like, okay, I just basically have a melody down. And
I do that a lot too, but I noticed that all the tracks that when I have everything ready and right away I just go for arrangement, the track is done and is amazing.
Yeah.
And if it takes me too much, if I procrastinate, sometimes when I come back, I cannot arrange
you lost it
as I could
Was the essence.
in the first place.
Yeah.
So I think we just do it because as wow, it's easy for us to, I don't know, have our own sabotage mechanisms. Everybody has it,
Oh yeah.
So I'd say that's that. But I think mainly we shouldn't. We should just like, hey, fuck it. I'm gonna do this now.
I agree.
Because I think even I'm gonna start, because once you start, sometimes you're just like, oh, it's so amazing, and then you just lose yourself.
And you're
then
happy for it.
hours, the track is done, and then it's awesome, and you can always come back the next day to, of course, the little things and.
Wow.
I had that situation with Khalil actually. I was talking to him and I was doing the same thing. And then at some point, I think it was midnight, I decided, fuck it, I'm just gonna do it. And in 2 hours, I think I was ready. And I went to sleep at 3 and I was super happy that I actually done it. And it was like,
that
okay.
is the last one track, no? The last
Yeah, the line of sight, yeah, the one with the little vocal, yeah. That was like that as well, because I just went over and over the 8-bar loop and I was like, okay, this is good. But yeah, it just took me a while. But once I started, it was easy.
My theory is, like, personally for myself, what happens in these moments, it's this psychological phenomenon called upper limiting. It's too good to be true. You know, I can't be really that good. I can't just do this. I can't just nail this in an hour. So you start, like, you know,
Sabotaging yourself.
sabotaging yourself.
Yeah, and again, it's a
And,
sabotage
and then you
mechanism.
get out of the rhythm and out of the flow, and then it's difficult. But then it's like, yeah, it's difficult. Life is, you know, it's really.
And then you rationalize it, and you give yourself excuses for everything.
Because we probably all in our childhood didn't hear enough words like, you know, you're exceptional and you're worth it and you are awesome and you deserve all of this and you're freaking talented. So that's, I think, what we hit this wall at the studio. I always think the moment when you close getting to this like genius, that's when all the freaking doubts come in and they're like, no, you're not, that's not true, you know. It's like, I mean, I've done things in my life where in situations where and afterwards I couldn't believe it, how I manipulated myself in the worst possible ways, you know. And so I think
I never thought about it that way. That's crazy, but it does make sense. Yes, absolutely.
like, you know, when you have a track and it's actually you worked it through and it's really great. And one of the classics is, oh, maybe I should change the kick drum.
Oh, why?
Like, why would you do that after working for hours and it was all good? And then that's
Everything
when it
fits,
starts,
yes,
you know,
exactly.
the doubt comes up. Why would you change the kick drum after hours? Like, it's been good for 7 hours. There's nothing wrong with it, you know. But
Yeah, that I think that's a classic, right? A track is never really done, and it's so hard to just say, okay, this is enough. If I mess it, if I try more, if I try harder, I'm gonna just mess it up. This is the best it can be, and then just move on to the next. That's also, I think, a challenge for most up and coming producers, where you just keep working on it, and it just turns terrible after a while.
I think it's also for us, I think on one side, like that we are able to produce our tracks and test them weekend after weekend and fine tune them it's a gift, and I'm grateful for it.
Don't you miss it?
Oh yeah.
A tiny little bit. No, but at the same time, this being able to test it can also result in overworking it, going back over and over again.
Oh yeah.
So, it's a real art to know when the track is ready and when you finish it and say, no matter what, I'm going to leave it and, you know, just release it and start creating new music instead of going back over and over again.
It has to do a lot with the feeling too, I think, at least in my experience. Like, you need to get the feeling that it's done at some point. If you have at least the feeling that it's satisfactory, it's probably not a great track. You know, like for me, normally, like I get this feeling that it's done. Maybe the sound could be better here or there, whatever. That doesn't really mean much. It's more about the work itself, you know, like, and lately, the more, I would say over the past 4 years, it's easier for me at least to find out when a track is done, like when I'm over tweaking it and when I'm not supposed to be doing stuff to it anymore. I guess that comes with experience. I guess it also comes through like what Thomas was speaking about, like, because you're once you're not happy with some kind of behavior you have in the studio, like procrastinating an arrangement, for example, and you try to understand why you're doing that. That makes you try to understand yourself a little better in a deeper level, not only in the studio. So if you do understand yourself a little better, you understand the reactions you get to your own music and to your own compositions. And then you develop this quietness, I guess, you know, like this Zen quality that you are able to absorb what is there, and then you just know when it's ready, you know, like more confidence, I would say. That's
confidence is an important factor. I agree, and that goes in so many ways, you know. And for example, I find confidence also means to just really push things, you know, and to know I'm taking a risk here, which is the number one thing I'm missing often in music is risk taking. You know, and it goes for my music as well. Don't, you know, not pointing the finger, where I'm like listening to things, I'm like, this is pretty awesome, and they're like, come on, man, you could push the envelope a little bit more. And that's where confidence is great, that you say, and I can stand there in front of hundreds of thousands of people and represent that, you know, and hold that energy with them. And, you know, when you look at the people, I know this is not what you expected, but hey, let's go through this break together, you know. And I understand, because one of you guys has said before, for like, say, newcomers, producer DJs who are not as experienced, the pressure for them is a totally different one when they present tracks of their own as well in front of people, you know. So I think we also have a privilege in our position to do this, you know, to push the envelope, you know, and to dare and to do things differently and to do it with confidence. But
I agree with
be
you.
humble.
For sure, I agree with you, but I also think for newcomers, it's very important that for them to also be different and be themselves and to push the envelope because this is actually the advice that I give every time to newcomers. Like always be yourself and be different. Don't try to make a track like Weba's or yours or Alex's or mine. You know, just be yourself. Make your own. Find your own sound first, and then of course it takes time. And first, you know, you're gonna lose yourself a lot, right?
Yeah.
But or not. But I think that's the key component for me. I'd say for me to pay attention for a newcomer, like, oh, this is really different. This is really cool. This is like I never heard something like that before. Or even if I had it, this is different. I love it.
Yeah.
Have you guys ever had a track where when you were doing it, you were super excited about and you were like, oh, this might be huge, and then once you were done, you were like, oh, it's not that good. No, you know, I mean, have you ever had that?
Yeah.
Or where you just kind of weren't overboard with what you expected, or you kind of just messed it up midway, and you kind of felt, yeah, I don't know, like a wasted chance almost. You know what I mean? Where you were, oh, I don't know if I got that right. I don't know.
Yeah, with me it happened but it hasn't happened in a long time. But I think it's much to do with the confidence thing we just discussed a little bit before. Like, you know, sometimes you're just overconfident with something, not only underconfident. You know?
Yeah, it goes both ways.
Yeah, exactly. You know, it's a tricky road, like a slippery slope, because you have to. That's when you really need to know yourself, what you're doing in the studio. That comes with experience, I think. Also.
That is true. I had like not recently, but I think it was last year. I did this edit. I was like, wow, I nailed this edit. It's gonna become like my next, the Prodigy, whatever, and this is gonna be amazing. And then I started to play, and I played the first time. I was like, meh. Then I was like, meh.
Maybe not.
And the third time was like, man, I was like, come on, guys, don't you get it? The singing is amazing, and then it's just it's not. And I sent to colleagues and like even to all you guys, they just like, eh.
Yeah.
I mean, it's cool, it's nice, but it's not.
I think
it's not what you envisioned, right?
No, and
it's part of what we're doing. But I also agree with Weber. I can't remember that something that I finished a track and then afterwards I was like all of a sudden I woke up to the reality of that it was rather mediocre. But what I can remember a couple months ago. So often what I do, for example, I start with the drop, with the break of the track. You know, I nail that first because I know once I've got that done, then the stuff that comes before and afterwards will just fall into its place, you know?
Very good idea, actually.
And it's changing things up, keeps it interesting for me. And I just love breaks and all that. And then I also get to do automation early on, which I just love so much.
Yeah.
And I did it with one track. And I remember posting that 2.5 minute break and people were also like, whoa, dude, you know? And you know what happened? I just couldn't bring it together. I could not find a way to build up to that break and get out of it.
Yeah.
And I was so disappointed. I was like, it's the perfect break, but this is not coming together.
Yes. But it's a funny thing. Wait, sorry. I lost my train of thought. Proceed.
Okay.
It's okay. It'll come back to you. So, I think I actually know which track you're talking about, Thomas, or something. It was something that you posted. Oh no, actually no. I thought it was. It's the one that came out on Electric Ballroom because you posted that in your bathtub, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, I remember you started by the break with that one as well. I haven't done that in a while. I've done that in the past, but I haven't done it in a while. And now I just started. I have this melody, but I can't really figure out how to do what comes before and after. But yeah, we'll keep trying, keep on it.
These conversations give me a lot of inspiration to make new music. Thank you, guys.
That's awesome. So you're welcome.
Yeah. Wow. It's for me, for another thing that I probably Victor knows that for me, it's what and it's all about keeping it interesting and fresh for myself. I'm super egotistical in the studio in that sense, you know, or we are. Is like I don't know how to like I call it the B part. When I'm creating, when I'm in the process of laying something down, you know, ideas, I'm already in the back of my mind looking for something that could also come in this track that is different. You know, so basically the idea is that after the break, whatever comes is not just a repetition of what was going on before the break.
B part.
95% of the music structure, which is fine. It's part of the DNA of techno. But I personally am really excited when I can come find this little thing, this little twist that makes it different, where people go, oh, I didn't expect that. And
that makes it special.
Yeah, but also it's got to fit with what you're doing, you know. You're not going to change the key after the break or stuff like that, you know. But
yeah,
it could be just it could be slight differences. Sometimes it could be something more obvious, but
I think that's a very cool view. That we were, you and me, we were talking about that when I was
Yeah.
at your studio. You were saying about that just having that B part. And I mean, you may end up using it, you may not, but it's good that it's there, and it may end up just being the biggest part of the track as well sometimes.
Totally be it, and it just feels like another tool in my box that I have already when I start arranging, knowing, you know, okay, I've got this, I've got that. Let's play, let's bring this together, you know. And as you said, sometimes you realize I don't need it, but sometimes it just comes into place, and you're like, it was when I did the House of House remix.
Mm-hmm.
And I really wanted to pay homage to the original because I grew up with it, I played that. So for me, I literally copied the arrangement in a way and recreated it. And that went all really well. And I brought it obviously down to a tempo that is more suitable for today's dance floors. And the sound design was, you know, pretty close to, because it was sampled. So, but
yeah.
I was like, okay, so what's that? What's that B part that makes it more than just say like an updated version? And that was the 303 that I found for it. And when I programmed that, I was like, damn, when that comes in after the first break, they're gonna go nuts, you know. It's just
spot on.
It was, yeah, thank you. I felt like that too, you know. It was just this moment where you go, okay, surprise, unexpected, and yeah, but yeah.
That's cool, man. And tell us about NIP Collective.
Now we go. Should we talk about that year and what that meant in your life?
Yeah, I mean, it started in '93, right? So I was 7 years old.
There you go.
Yeah, I had just moved. We had just moved from Germany back to Brazil. It was in '92 we moved, the whole family. So yeah, I wasn't going to rave parties or making music. You can be sure.
No, that was big. Yeah. NIP Collective was 1993 was the first ever vinyl release that I had. But the project started in 1989 with a friend together. And
The year I was born.
wow, there you go. Yeah. And we started touring live together, you know, playing live acts and playing all over northern Germany mostly. And it was just an insane time. It was really when techno just was born, literally around that time, you know. So you had this incredible feeling of being part of a movement that was just so fresh and like a music revolution. And you could tell everybody was just like, wow, you know. I mean, I learned so back then. So I often try to tell people who are a little bit younger than I am, the difficulties of just setting up a simple recording studio. You have no idea, because no internet, no mobile phones. I mean, we had a landline at home, but I didn't even know who to call to explain to me how MIDI works.
Yeah.
And then very limited budget, so I could only buy really cheap secondhand stuff.
Wow.
So I remember I had an Atari Mega ST2 that's 2 megabyte of RAM.
Wow.
That was the mothership already, you know. That was my first computer. And then
RAM, 2 megabyte.
yes,
That's
can
insane.
you imagine? Yeah. And anyway, so that's how it started. And then I wanted to buy a synthesizer. And so I went to I think it was on a flea market actually, and I saw an old synthesizer. and I bought it, and it turned out it was a Korg MS-10. So there's the computer, there's the synthesizer. I had a little mixer, and I was like, so how do they talk to each other? Then I realized the computer has MIDI. So I'm checking the synthesizer. I was like, there's no MIDI on there. And then a whole world of pain starts, because a year later, literally forward, someone tells you there is a CV to MIDI interface by a company called Depth. And you're like, oh my God, really? And so it was so painstakingly slow, everything. But in a way, it made you appreciate everything. And you started to become extremely creative with your resources as well,
Yes. And it
It's
gave you
funny.
time to explore them as well, right?
Oh,
I mean, it was a much slower paced world than it is today.
Man,
Yeah.
I couldn't.
But people used to talk about, like you were telling me now. For example, I started much later, like 10 years after that.
Right.
Even more. But even then, the internet was still kind of in the beginning. There was not like this whole amount of information on the internet.
No.
So you could even try to find some stuff, but it wasn't really the internet the source of any information about audio production and stuff like that. It was more like magazines.
Yes.
But then you still rely on going to people to ask them. Like
Go
that's
meet people
that
and
was the most
exchange
reliable.
information.
What?
Going to places and exchanging information.
Exactly. That was like the most reliable resource for information. Like that's how you really got to learn and advance into production. And I think that was really interesting. But now with the internet, like you can get to be an expert in less than a year, and then really start to develop your craft instead of just trying to find information. It's a different process, but I think it's actually really beneficial in that sense.
Yeah.
Like nowadays, you get to be an artist earlier before you
because you're not. Sorry, Thomas, go on.
No, just to say that, because I think very often nowadays, I think there's a lot of criticism about up and coming artists and how fast they develop. And I see it differently because we were just forced to do it like that. I wish I had more information at hand, much more easily. I wish the gear would have been much more affordable, and I just think that what makes it so difficult these days for everyone who starts is this sheer amount of choices that you have. I think that the noise is so high. That was a benefit back then. You had so little choice. You had to focus on it. You could you had a year to get to know your like monophonic synthesizer, nowadays. But again, I find it's great that music has become so widely available, instruments, information, and so I'm all for it, I just want to say for people, when they ask for advice, I always say though, enjoy all the possibilities that you have, go for it, but then hone in on something. Make sure you understand the synthesizer really well. You can really craft sounds, for example, instead of looking for or buying preset sounds that someone wrote, so.
And kind of just trying to be really good at one thing instead of being okay at a bunch of them.
And not even okay, just mediocre, no? Because
Yeah.
just looking for presets everywhere, it's not even okay, right? And
I have a question for Thomas.
Yeah.
Since we're talking about the old days, how did you make Shell? Because that's the track I first got to know you from. That was a beast. That was like in Brazil it was so huge.
Yeah.
Every rave had to play it at least 20 times. And I was always like, wow, because it has so much impact. Even today, it's still like it's one of those tracks. If somebody plays it out, everybody would just like, what's that? It's a showstopper.
Thank
and
you.
There's a video of Frog playing it of like last year or something. It was like viral. I was like, wow.
Yeah. It's insane. But I had remember when I sent you a while ago a video of me and Anna jamming in the studio playing that.
That's right. That was so cool. I loved it. You played the bass.
And the way I did it, I was using the Roland TR-8 with the delay pedal.
Yeah.
So that's how I kind of got the groove to that track. And then Anna was playing the bass line on the Moog. But what did you actually use? Do you still remember what you used
Yeah.
to make?
It was easy because I had only 2 synthesizers, so
See, there you go.
and one of them was the MS-10. So it started. This one really started with a sample, which was just from my record collection. It was Adonis Acid Poken,
Okay.
like a really early 90s acid track, you know. And so I love that. And the thing was, as you did in the like throughout most of the 90s, if you had a vocal sample, you would just loop it, and that's it. You know, you would hear it mostly through the whole song, and sometimes you would filter it, manipulate it.
Yeah.
And then the space line, it was the Korg 707, which unfortunately nowadays is being called a toy synthesizer, which I disagree with, but it was like a very small version of a DX7 of a Yamaha FM synthesizer, and yeah, that's how this bass line
And the drums, like how did you get that groove?
I sampled it from I think from a Kari Leckerbusch record.
Oh,
Wow.
Yeah,
that makes sense.
yeah,
That makes a lot of sense.
yeah.
And what about the vocal? Like, how did you stretch it, like to do that effect? That is so cool. You
That
remember?
was I've been always really a big fan of sampling, you know, and that's why I, like, say in the mid 90s, I started to invest heavily into like samplers and the ones that I could afford. So, and the game changer for me was the EMU EX4 Turbo. That was a sampler that made it possible for me to really like do these time stretching effects and or like program it in a way that I remember with this one. I think what I did was that the modulation wheel would change the start point of the sample where it was played from.
Okay.
Stuff like that, you know.
That's
And
cool.
yeah, thank you. I agree. It was really like, wow, all the things you can do. Again, because there was nothing else to do with it. And you would just, it's still in my DNA. For example, if I find a synthesizer and I create a great sound, I'm almost always looking for the next great sound there because I'm already in it, you know, instead of opening another plugin or something. And that's that old school thing, you know. It's like make use of what you got, which also often leads to a very homogenic sound because you're getting it from like the same source in a way.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So yeah, and things came together with Shell, you know. It was first released on a small label from my hometown, and then but no one really paid attention to it. That was like in 1995, and then 3 years later I remixed it, and then it started to really take off, you know, and then it became what it is nowadays. And
What about Tainted Shell? Did you license that, or how did that come about?
this is that's when the internet kicked in, because someone sent me a link and said, listen to this, and some guy, I never found out exactly who was behind it, basically had done a mashup of both.
Yeah.
And I heard that and I was like, that's so cool, you know. So so I basically mimicked it and put it back together, and then
You know my email, you can send it.
Yeah.
and the thing is, so I started just doing it for myself for the clubs, and then people got really excited about it, and then a record label approached me. But then it got really interesting. Tainted Love is obviously like, you're talking about major label, major publisher in the US. So and they said like sampling isn't an option. You can maybe replay it, stuff like that. So the official version in the end was an instrumental, but the original version was obviously the original of Tainted Love, the cover version by Soft Cell with Shao, and I still play it sometimes. It's
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's cool.
special moments, you know. It's like
That is very cool to know.
yeah.
How was it living in Tokyo for a year, Thomas?
I was living in Tokyo for a year. It was exciting and one of the most beautiful experiences in my life, because I'd never done anything like that. And the first time I was booked to Japan was, oh God, 1998, I think. And I immediately fell in love with the country and the people and the culture. And I was lucky to have immediately a very good friend there, Tobi-san. And he really, yeah.
Amazing guy. Thank you
I
for
first met him, which was so cool.
such a nice guy.
So he, not only did he introduce me to the, like all these Ken Ishii and everybody who was like Denki Groove, you know, and all the guys that were doing the record stores techniques in Tokyo, but also to the culture. And I came back to Germany and I did another tour to Japan and played all over Japan. And the third time, it's like, I'm just going to move. Screw this, you know, it's just, I have to do this, you know, because as you know, it's this perfect combination of future and retro.
And amazing food.
And the food, don't even get me started. And
Best
I
food.
was really lucky because there was this club called Maniac Love back then. And it was just, it was basically an after hour club. It was the only Sunday after hour in Tokyo that went all day. It was the only place for open gay, cross-dressers, gender fluid people. And it was maybe 150 people capacity. It was just a dream come true, honestly. And I got to play there a lot and it became more famous throughout the years. And then all of a sudden you had like Jeff Mills showing up, playing there, Kraftwerk after a gig came.
Wow.
And it was wild. It was so packed all Sunday. You couldn't breathe in there, but it was just so good. So the place doesn't exist anymore today. It's just an office building, you know, but was really cool.
Would you still live there today?
Not live there.
All things considered?
No. But I'm always eager to go back and with the family, of course, and
Of course, yeah.
you know, be there and meet friends and of course play. I mean, as you know, probably all experienced, playing in Japan is quite something as well. It's
I haven't. I think I'm the only one of the group who hasn't been there yet.
okay. So, but
So hopefully,
you will. For sure.
yes, yeah. Eventually, we'll get there.
My second last weekend before this everything closed.
Went
So
to right.
we almost canceled to go there because of the
Yeah.
thing. Thank God I didn't cancel because it was one of the best trips of my life, if not the best. It's amazing.
It's unique, huh? Yeah, I love Japan. Did you also notice that people? It's a form of being polite. They dance facing you. Everybody's basically looking at you, which I felt in the beginning also a bit weird, and I was like, why, you know? But then it got explained to me, you know. I remember also, maybe it's different nowadays, but back then it was also people would queue in front of the club, like basically the whole crowd was waiting before the doors opened. It was not friendly to show up late. So they would open the door, within 10 minutes, the place was just packed, you know. It was always like, wow.
Amazing.
And I play the intro. Oh, yeah.
Japan is really special. The people there, they're really friendly. The food, the city. I mean, I only been to Tokyo, but
Yeah.
it's
No, it's a special.
top 3 of my favorite places on the planet.
Definitely, yeah. It's amazing.
Yeah, right.
And
It's really inspiring to go.
Japan.
Yeah,
Thomas,
there's another question about the hobby of yours.
what? You have a question there, Victor?
I know you have a question about Thomas's hobby.
Oh, not a hobby. You once said that you love to iron. Do ironing. Do you still consider that a meditative? Is that a word? I just made up a word, I think. No, that is a word.
Yep.
Yeah. So
I stand by this. I still love it. I understand these days, though, that actual meditation is much better for me. But if I get a chance, but this is the thing. I'm also very picky with it. It's not that I like to iron anything. It's
okay.
There's items that I dislike so much, if it makes me angry. No, it's got to be the right thing to iron. If I can have a smooth, like a long shirt or something like that. Ooh.
Oh, what's your favorite? Cotton? No. So
Come on, get out of here.
This is where it's going now. Right? Amazing.
This is the tech talk.
Now we're nerding out.
No, this is the no in our logo. This is the no.
all your producers out there, cotton is the way to go, guys. It's the best for you.
You want a very
Actually has some really quirks. Like he likes automation and he likes ironing.
Yeah,
That's like very specific things that not a lot of people like to do.
And I'm not touching polyester, guys. All right.
Okay. You see, yeah, that might be dangerous if you forget the iron on top of that. That's probably because
I just made that up. So
fell through. Oh man, that's a good one. Thomas, how do you go about your kicks? I had someone message this to me. Do you make them? Do you sample them? There's no real, there's not a rule. Do you, what's the rule of no rules?
I buy them.
You buy them.
Yes, I have a.
Oh, so samples mostly.
Yeah, there's this guy, a very amazing producer from Italy, Dino Maggiorani, and who's a full-blown recording artist, but he's also got this other side of what he does, which is sample packs. And he is such a crack like that and such a specialist. And I realized, but that was like ages ago, that there are certain aspects of music production that I can do, but it's not really rewarding for me. And in terms of workflow, for me, it's much better to know these kicks are awesome. I have 20 of those, that's plenty. And then I'll start with that instead of like spending 2 hours creating that part. So I'm just relying on these sample banks with specific kick drums from this guy. And that's how I do it.
That's cool. It does. I mean, I bet it does. I sometimes can spend hours. I even have a time limit that I usually put in. So if it's not sounding good after a couple of hours, I delete and start again, because sometimes it can take forever. And then sometimes your ears are just they're kind of just trying to tell you, dude, it's okay, you can let go now. But then you kind of go for a walk or something, and then when you come back with fresh ears, you're like, oh, this is terrible.
Yeah.
And then you kind of.
I think we all know how you can lose yourself so quickly in these things. And like, especially this kind of like way of producing kicks, or like kick and rumble. It's just something that I think some people have it really in them, and they have a setup where they just dish it out easily. Not for me like that. So the thing is, I trust him. I know his kicks and his kick rumble always work. You know, I don't have to use any brain juice for that. So from there, I can just take off quickly. Whereas the other way around would take me too long. I might doubt it too much. So, and that's another thing that I've learned. Like Victor and I talked about it. Workflow trumps everything in the studio for me. So
you don't think that limits you to have a sample that it didn't come from you? I mean, I'm just asking because I'm genuinely curious, because for me it's completely different. So I just want to understand a different point of view, because like if you have a sample from somebody else, you didn't even sample it yourself. Like it's just a sample that you weren't inspired by it. You just found that it sounds nice from a pack, and then you start a track with it. Doesn't it limit your sound palette for that track? Like limits the way you want to go?
Not at all, interestingly. No. But I think that the important part for me is, of course, that I have this choice of kicks, and that I can tap into the kind of energy level that I want to bring, and like more distorted, more raw. And then from there, I find it really easy to shape things around and rather not feel limited, rather feel like, okay, this opens the gates for me. But I totally get what you say. I think it can work both ways, you know. For me, this is, I think, something that we all need to figure out for ourselves. What works for me and what doesn't work, you know?
Yeah, definitely. That's why I was really curious, because just a different approach completely. And
and I can tell you, it almost only works for me with kicks and sometimes with percussive elements, but then rather hi-hats. But anything else, I can't, like sampled loops, I don't touch them at all. That's where I feel extremely limited. I can't tell my story with like bass loops or anything like that. So yeah. And I think that, just to say that, maybe it's something I noticed a lot when I listened to demos, is the difficulty that new producers run into when it comes to developing a track, arranging, creating dynamics, creating drama, because I have a feeling too often they rely on 4-bar loops, which sound great as long as they're looped, you know, in a 4-bar loop. But once you let it go through a track, I always feel like it sounds like a car that runs out of gas quickly, you know. And so I'm always, when I work with synthesizers, that's why I work with synthesizers so much. While I'm creating the sound, I'm already tapping into all sorts of modulation possibilities. How can I develop this sound? You know, how can this sound ideally carry throughout the whole track? Which is something that clearly comes from the 90s. That was the production technique. You know, you would just loop things throughout the whole track. So you better make sure it stays interesting and it's good enough to keep the the people like,
Interest.
interested, totally. So that's why personally, coming back to what Weber just said, I feel extremely limited when it comes to audio loops of any kind of like main sounds. That's what I can't do.
Cool.
Guys, we're running in 1 hour already.
Yeah.
You wanna add something? Keep going. What's the status there?
Thomas,
Anybody else have any questions? Just drop it in the comments here. We're gonna try to.
yes,
Mhm.
please.
Slow it
Thomas,
down.
do you have anything coming up?
Me?
Yeah.
Yes. Absolutely, lots of stuff. So that was a good cue. Me and you, we did a track together, Victor, didn't we?
Yeah, I remember that.
Do you remember? Nice.
Rings a bell.
Weber had one foot in the door, and so
Yeah, it's a very nice track.
so Into It is now coming out, or it's on Spotify now. It's from the Drum Code A-Sides Volume 9 compilation.
Yeah.
And I think it's going to be released next week.
Absolutely.
And I'm very happy that we finally have a track out together again, Victor, you and me. But I think it's just hopefully the beginning of more, because we really need to do another EP, my friend.
I agree. I 100% agree. This track, guys, has a very fun fact. It started as a Terminator soundtrack remake.
Bootleg, you could say, almost.
It was like a remake, like
Yeah, remake, yeah.
Blade
Yeah,
Runner
remake,
kind of
yeah.
thing. And actually, this track was meant to be produced not just by me and Thomas, but by also our Weber. He was part of the. He was
I was
part
a
of the-
dropout. It's a dropout in the story.
School dropout.
Yeah.
So, yeah, it was very interesting.
Because you know what? But let's tell the whole story though.
Yeah.
We said, okay, let's do this, and we all agreed, and then we shared the Dropbox file and everything, and we started working on it. And then I loaded it up, and I was like, okay, I'll take a day to think about this. And then I took a week, and I couldn't work that week. And then Victor already sent in something, and I was like, oh shit, all right. So this is moving. It's like another week went by, and then it was like the arrangement was there. I was like, fuck, what's happening?
Fair enough.
And then I was just like, fuck, you guys did it.
No.
Victor got in the zone. I was the same. It was like, oh, shit's done. It was like.
Yeah, we just inspired. But then, of course, we realized that the break was very, very, very cheesy, and almost like bordering EDM even. And then we said, wow, it's really cool, but not everybody gets it. So we just like, okay, let's. And then was very fun fact, when I played Awakenings last year, Bart did an edit without the break.
Yeah.
And then from that, it was like, okay, then I was playing every weekend. And then he sent to Adam, and then Adam was like, what about the track, guys? Like, we're going to release the A-side. So I was like, wow, let's do it.
Nice story. I really like the sound design of it. It's totally unique because we obviously wanted to stay close to this. I mean, that's like Terminator 1.
Yeah.
We're talking about like 80s, probably the sound design is just unusual, which makes it so raw and different, and
Exactly.
was a great thing. And just while I'm plugging things, after the Drum Code release, the week after is Caitlin and my next EP on my label Electric Ballroom.
Great as well, by the way.
Thank you very much. Aligned by Nature, and which is the first time that I'm releasing a track that I have not even played in my life in a club, because
That's
it was
weird.
that one of them was just like
interesting.
yeah. So that's new. Obviously, you get the DJ feedback from the promos, and thanks guys for your support and getting back. But it's an entirely different world now and a new experience. I'm super excited that it comes out, and I will also, because there's discussion amongst other producers who run labels, do you continue to release music throughout this time? I said, of course I will. Absolutely.
I think more than ever, right?
More
Because
than ever, absolutely.
people are at home, and
It's not a business model. It's more like, that's my way of expressing myself. That's what we live off. That's the blood in our veins, So yeah, for sure, more than ever, you know. And
Yeah, I think that's a good discussion as well. We talked about this, I think, a couple of weeks back, and we kind of all agree that this, like, people need music more than ever. Imagine what would have happened if we just if everyone stopped releasing music for the next 3 or 4 months. Everyone would go crazy. It's insane.
yeah.
Of course, I understand both sides. I understand the labels derogative as well, and they're worried, etc., and so on. But
But I don't, from what my label manager tells me, as far as Beatport goes or Spotify,
Sales are fine, no?
it's rather more than usual. So, which makes
that's
sense. You
cool.
know? People have more time at hand, you know, and I think when you can't go and get your fix of festivals or clubbing, then you still want to somehow get that into that feeling, you know. And
Mhm.
no wonder streams are popular right now.
That is true.
And so,
Like, you know, it's a culture. It's a
Yeah.
culture, and it's way bigger than just gigs. Like I
Yes.
posted something like this week. Is, you know, and also
I read that.
that dance music is not just, you know, to be consumed or even enjoyed at a club or
Yeah.
rave. You know, it's a whole culture, and I think artists that are even starting or already into the scene, they should still create and build that culture. You know, it should be fed, it should be maintained, you know, it should be cultivated. And I think it's an important thing to realize as a producer right now. You know, people are not demotivated because they're not gonna get gigs, they're not gonna play out the tracks, but I guess it's kind of counterintuitive, but it's
And
a good way to approach this, you know.
I so agree, and I'm glad you say that, Weber, because it's spot on. What we're doing is culture, and it's a huge part of youth culture, especially also going out. And that's why I like to encourage also the people who love our music and who go out on weekends and go to clubs and support these clubs and go to festivals to do this during this time, because we don't have a big lobby for what we do, although we cater for so many people. I mean, in Germany alone, the percentage of young people, say between 18 and 25, that go and listen to electronic music is huge. We're talking about a large number of people. And I understand that within what's happening right now, that surely we have to wait and be patient, but there will be a time when things will be possible again. And I would like to see politicians to recognize what we're doing and not use this to get rid of things that they maybe never really understood in the first place.
Exactly. I was talking to Alexander today about that exactly, because while everything is shared, like everybody's at home, let's say, people are consuming art a lot.
Mm-hmm.
You know, and us as artists, we don't have jobs right now. We're not working. We don't have income, let's say. Of course, no, there's different sources we can manage, but it's not sustainable for long, you know.
Yeah.
And if actually exactly if the government doesn't, they should actually now they should show like a big support to all of us.
They show, yes, and especially to clubs, you know, and also
For sure. As I say, not just art, I say the whole music art culture.
Yeah, for sure.
The whole institution, I guess, you know.
Because and I understand that we are all part of the solution as well, you know. So we, and as the DJs, the club owners, have to think twice as hard. What could be a way of starting this again, you know, before immunization will be available, you know, because that's the goal right now, before next year. And let's think about that. Let's brainstorm. Let's put it out there. Let the collective swarm join in, because we will come up with new ways. And then we have to just communicate that. Because if we don't do it, if we just sit back and wait for the politicians to fix this for us, we will be at the end of the line, for sure, you know. And so it's very early at this stage. I think we just have to wait maybe another couple of weeks until the testing and they know more about what's going on with the virus. But when there's more information available and more security and safety in terms of how you can deal with this, how this new normal looks like, I want to be right there and say, okay, if we understand this now, how to live with it. Maybe this is possible again. How can we do that? You know, maybe there can be some big events with lots of space in between people. I don't know, but it's important to allow this and not, you know, just sit back and wait.
Exactly.
Yeah.
It's gonna be,
to the start of the conversation, right? What we were saying, like, we just have to surrender and wait. And I mean, wait in the sense of wait for information and
Yeah.
what's going to happen, but it doesn't matter that we can do new stuff. You know, I think it's also very
And
good.
also these conversations, you know, these kind of conversations are very fruitful, like where we get together and exchange ideas, and then some new idea pop up. That was kind of our idea also, you know, to create this techno talk thing, because
Love it.
it's not only boredom, it's a part of it, sure, but it's a way for us to get together and also to discuss new ideas, because we have to do that. We have to do that openly so that more people can chime in.
Yeah.
And, you know, so that we also can take this to governments, you know, like to build up cooperatives of artists, or even not only artists, but industry people, you know, like electronic music people, and then try to get stuff to happen, you know, because if we just sit around, it's also probably not happening, like at least not the way we want to, you know, not the way we
No, and I think
fantasize, you know.
Yeah, and I mean, just to say that, and I think we're all more aware of the fundamental rights that all the countries that we are from grant us by the Constitution, which is to gather freely, which we cannot do anymore right now.
Yeah,
I mean, that is unheard of in the history of Germany after World War II, that was restricted like that, and for many other countries as well. And as long, I think, as we get good reasons for that, and the government is able to explain that to us, that's important. I think it's the job of the government also to do everything in its power to show the plan how we gonna come out of this, and for all of us, you know, and we can support them again by saying, okay, we are the ones on the forefront. We know how clubs work, how festivals work. Here are ideas, you know, let's feed that already into them, you know, because that's important.
I agree with you. I'm very excited how it's going to be the first parties after that. You know?
Man, can you imagine? It's gonna be like losing your virginity all over again. Like it's but it is.
Then it's gonna be really messy. That's for sure.
Oh.
What do I do?
Well,
I was actually looking at my bags, and I was like, just my bag, which is usually, you know, just next to the door, because it's you know, that's where it spends most of its time. There's no reason of bringing it in, never. And now it's just been sitting there for 2 months, and I was like, man, I can't wait to use you again, like just to have to pack, and man, it's crazy how.
I'm still grieving. Alex. I'm still grieving. I didn't have any strength to go to my bag and open it, because I still have the same thing from.
Dude, you probably still have a sandwich from February in that thing. Go open it, man. Come on. Come
on. No. But I mean, I'm just avoiding my bag, you know, and.
Yeah, I know.
Like, man.
Oh man.
It is very strange. But I mean, on the other hand, like Weber said, I mean, in part we're doing this out of boredom, but I honestly think it's cool that in part this whole situation brought us together, and that people are more open now, you know, to do that kind of stuff. Usually they would be, it's gonna be a nightmare to get all the agendas together, and no, blah blah blah. Now it's like, what's your excuse? Like, okay, we all have stuff to do and music to make and daily activities, etc. But in a way, it's cool how this kind of open.
I love it. I think, and I want to thank you guys for setting this up and inviting me again. And I really, what I like to see is this to continue and to grow, and not just to stop when we go back on the road. And you know, and I also I think we're all very thinking about also ways to monetize what we're doing, you know, in these times. Which I think is great for thinking like long term. We're all getting older, you know, and I think it's great if we create new ways of doing what we love to do and earning money with it, and for people to enjoy the music in other ways. You know, not everyone is so into going to clubs, but loves the music and loves this kind of feeling. I think that streaming will develop amazingly over the next couple of months. You know, I think we're still in the baby shoes of that right now. So let's see this as a huge opportunity to expand and grow and to create something new that is so much better than before. And that also goes for clubbing events. You know, let's be more conscious about what we do there, festivals, And I know we never will take things for granted again like we did before. I think that is clear. That ship has sailed, you know.
Yeah, I agree with you, man.
If
I
we're
agree
smart,
as
we're
well.
not.
Yeah.
I'm very, very excited about that.
Yeah, boys, I can't wait to be partying with you all again. It's gonna be amazing. It's
Yeah.
gonna be amazing.
The whole world will be a party for months.
Oh man, it's gonna be beautiful.
Woo.
I cannot wait. And I guess I'm not alone. Everyone
Yeah.
is in that
I
same.
think everybody, but also everybody's as eager as we are because, I mean, the fans know the general public. Everybody's keen to party, and I'm pretty sure. I mean, it's very interesting now how life works. Like we're all in like at least us three now, me, Alex, and Thomas. We're like in actually colder countries. Everybody's in Spain, but I think this summer is going to be pretty amazing. The weather.
It's
And
gonna be
we're
intense.
April. Yeah,
So
now it's April. Today was 22.
Dude,
Yeah.
it's very hot already. I was talking to my mother about it, I think, and I was like, I'm kind of scared. Like I'm generally a little bit worried because you guys know that my like it gets very warm up here in the summer and it's gonna be crazy. And of course, the irony, you know, it's gonna be a beautiful, beautiful summer.
It's going to be a beautiful summer, and we're not probably not going to be able to spend our times like large gatherings and
Well, we're gonna be enjoying it, but not in our vision, at least not to the fullest, let's say, or at least we'll be missing a little part of it because especially in Europe, which is something that I find cool, which doesn't really exist that much in Brazil, which is the summer season, like the season, you know, where it starts and then yay, let's go party, festivals, and then it gets too cold. Okay, everybody back in the clubs, and then they do that for 6 months and then come out again and so on. And I think that's amazing. I really love that the whole movement. Outside, inside. I think that's really cool.
Yeah, and the feeling that it brings also, you know, you can really feel it. Like you feel the excitement.
Exactly.
Going out.
Yes.
You know, you don't get that in Brazil. It's just like the same vibe year long.
Yeah, it's always warm. Like you don't
Yeah.
know, it's nice. It's party,
like,
yeah, but it's party in
go out,
July.
dude.
No, it's a little bit colder, you know, and it's party and thing. You sweat a little bit more, but honestly, it's like it doesn't really change that much. You know, it's I feel because you have festivals all day, all year long.
Just because someone is saying it here, would love to see a club night with all four of you. I think we can guarantee that to the people when we go back on tour. We'll make sure we play a night together, right? The four of us.
That would be amazing. That would be amazing. And I mean, we can make it happen. We're all in Europe. It shouldn't be a problem at all.
Cool.
Tip to promoters out there who are listening.
a shout out. Guys.
Yeah, shout out, exactly. Yeah, but that would be amazing. And I think in any shape or form, spending time together, spinning records, and it's gonna be very, very good. So guys, what do you say? Should we be wrapping this up? We're about in an hour and 17.
Yeah, I think was the wrap, Alex. I think it's
we covered lots of ground, and now we're getting less people online. So
yeah, I'm not
wrapping it up.
Yeah, we're short a little bit.
Do you guys have anything else to say, like a message? I can speak for Alex and Weba, but Thomas, thank you very much for joining us tonight. Was for being our lab rat. It was our first guest, you know, here in our talk, and
it was a pleasure.
Thank you so much for being so humble and such a great guy, and always giving us such nice perspective in life. I mean, at least as a friend, I can say you truly changed my life in many ways. So thank you very much, and thank you for joining us. And
I'm looking for the tissues. The tears are coming.
It's getting emotional. It's getting emotional.
Very Brazilian.
We're Latin, so
yeah, no, thanks guys, and stay home, stay safe, you know, take good care of yourself. Absolutely. And we'll see each other soon again.
Absolutely, man. Thank you guys so much. Everyone go check out Thomas's and Victor's release coming out on Drum Codes. Please buy that stuff, support your artists. And Weber, do you have anything coming up that you want to share with everyone?
No.
No.
You can also go back to my album that was just out last month.
Oh yeah, I mean that's needless to say, but absolutely, please, guys, album of the year at least, or I mean honestly, more time than that. One of the masterpieces this fine gentleman. And I mean, I'm not just gonna keep saying this, but yes, big fan here. And guys, go check everyone out. I have a streaming coming on Sunday that I recorded with this fine gentleman as well, with Thomas, on our balcony. Hope you guys are all there on Sunday, and wish you all a great rest of the week. Thank you, boys.
Tschüss.
Oh,
Thank
quick
you,
one
guys.
before we finish. Just
Yes.
a very quick one.
Absolutely.
Everybody that's watching that right now, if you have any suggestions for guests that you would like to see on the next Techno Talk, please drop it in the comments. We'll be checking it through the week, and then we'll try to approach.
Yeah, exactly.
Any
I
of
mean,
those
we already
suggestions.
have our guest for the next one, but it's a surprise. So
Yeah, I mean, if just send us through DMs or whatever, it's gonna be. Oh, Thomas fell. But anyway,
Thomas
for,
went out.
for whoever's left, yes, just send us suggestions for whatever, and we're gonna be reading through all of that. And we'll see you guys next week then.
thank you, guys. Bye bye.
Bye, boys.
Tschüss.